It's time to go to work with Kansas City's entrepreneurs, inventors, brand builders, and business icons.
People want to do business with people they like. They want to do business with where it's easy, and we just try to make it as easy as we can.
We have to work really hard to connect those young people early on, maintain those networks, grow those networks. That's how people are getting jobs.
One of the best things about technology startups is you don't need a lot of capital. You really need a lot of time, and you just need really smart software developers that can create the product.
Experience the hands-on fits and starts of innovative business building going on right here, right now, in our community. This is reality TV that works. Startups, made in Kansas City.
I'm good for about 20 or 25 shots of espresso in the morning, and then I am just absolutely calm, cool, and collected. But if I don't have 20 or 25 shots, I can't operate very well. Welcome to the Roastery coffee roasting plant, and this was all inspired by a trip I made to Costa Rica. I lived for a year as a high school foreign exchange student, and my friends in high school down there took me coffee picking. That was back in 1978 when I first started picking coffee, and later through finals, my first set of finals at Iowa State, I started drinking coffee, and I've been drinking an obscene amount of coffee every day ever since. That is delicious, and it really is. The advice I would give somebody who wants to get into the coffee business would probably be similar to any business. I would just say make sure it's your passion. You know, it's been 20 years and I still dream about coffee every single night, usually multiple times. And you would just, you'd be surprised at how difficult business is. No matter what your business is, it's going to be so much more difficult than you think it's going to be. Somebody said, "Did you bet the farm?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You know, I bet the farm when we started too, but it's a lot harder to bet the farm when you have a farm than when you don't." And so people starting off will often say, "Well, I bet everything I have." And if you kind of dig a little bit, there's probably not that much there that they actually, and that was the case. Yeah, I bet everything I had when I started off in 1993, but in retrospect, I had $17,000 and it wasn't all that much to bet. It's not this notion of dollar signs that's going to take you through it. You know, if you're in it for the passion, there's a friend of mine in town who says, you know, about entrepreneurs, we're just too stupid to know when to quit. And I think there is some truth to that. All the evidence would tell you you're an idiot not to quit. And I guarantee you just about anybody who's been in business very long has gone through that. But if you're, it's like being a parent. Quitting is never an option. So we're in what we call the Green Mile. This is a small portion of the coffee that we have. We keep most of our coffee in Oakland, California, and we keep it there in the warehouse because the temperature is low out there and the humidity level is a lot lower, and we just get shipments each week. This is our cupping room, and this is where we decide which coffees we're going to buy. And there's an enormous number of tests that we do before we purchase a coffee. And this is where we do all of our packaging. There's really three key differences, or tenets, if you will, that differentiate us from everybody else out there in terms of coffee roasting. Number one, we buy the best coffee that we can find in the world. We roast it the best way known to mankind, and then we get it to the customer as fast as humanly possible. And for us, the best way to roast coffee is with an air roaster. And this is, I know it's not much to look at, but we've come to believe it's actually beautiful. And this heat gun was our first sample roaster, and it still works. If we put green coffee in there and turn this on, there's a little dial here, we would be able to roast coffee using this heat gun. This is our first roaster. It's a 12-pounder, and we had it installed actually the end of September of 1993. We'll never get rid of it. I save everything, and I still have the 40 meg laptop that we started the company on. And every bean is perfectly roasted, and oh my God. Actually, I just had lunch, but every time I smell that, it actually makes me hungry. I'm not hungry, but it makes me hungry. It smells so good. We have a mantra, be easy to do business with. Just be easy to do business with. So, and sometimes we'll just say yes. It's so much easier. Just say yes. At the end of the day, that's what I think. No matter what is going on, how life changes, and whatever gizmos and electronics, people want to do business with people they like. They want to do business with where it's easy, and we just try to make it as easy as we can. Yeah, we modified our factory in a number of ways, but it was the starting point for it was really just simple good housekeeping and lean manufacturing. And we took everything off the floor that we did not need to roast and package coffee. And you might think, well, duh, but there were a lot of things on the floor that we needed once in a while. And so what happened was, at the same time we increased our volume by about 50%, 40%, we shrunk the size of the footprint of the factory by over half. So then what that allowed us to do is we opened up a whole big area here, and we were getting lots of calls for people who wanted to have parties here, meetings here, weddings here. So now we created an event space we call the Bean Hangar, and we're having events 2 or 3 times a week. The space that we're looking at right now, there's going to be a big event tonight with, I think, 300 people will be here. A local bank is having a party here. So you see this wall across here. This whole area, this wall wasn't here last year, and all this was our factory space. So now what was backstage is now front stage. And what was invisible before, now people come in off the street and they're right in our living room. And that's exactly how I wanted it. We create custom blends for all of our customers who want them. So a lot of local folks in Kansas City have their own blend. Most every local chef that we do business with has their own blend. We probably have 2,000 active blends at any given time. We would love people to see that plane and then think, I want coffee, roastery coffee. Well, first and foremost, it's symbolic for us of air roasting. So air roasting, airplane. It just kind of made a lot of sense for us. Plus, about the only design I really, truly, absolutely love is Art Deco. And so the DC3 was designed in the 30s and it's totally Art Deco. For us, kind of personally, what it represents is adventure. So we love travel, we love adventure. We see the DC3s in Colombia and Africa. They're still up and down Central America. And of course, we think they're beautiful, but they're just enduring, they're tough, and for us, it's total adventure. I've never aspired to have a national brand, and somehow if it were in the cards, I wouldn't stand in the way, but I would never see myself getting on planes and making sales calls in other parts of the country. We kind of put a stake in the ground here in Kansas City, and that's, we proudly do that. We proudly are not on either coast, not because we can't be, but because we choose not to be. We're doing business where we want to be. We're living where we want to be. We proudly focus on Kansas City.
This is reality TV that works. Startups, made in Kansas City.
I was in college and I was at DeVry. I was working at Sears, had a car dealer come in to buy a computer from me and was telling me about all these problems he had. So I ended up helping write some software for him.
Matt and I met originally. He had a company called Vin Stickers. And Vin Stickers, our dealership ended up being the first customer for Vin Stickers. And it was an on-the-lot service company. What they did is post the vehicles online and put stickers on the car with the prices to make sure everything matched car prices online on the lot.
That kind of led into starting Vin Solutions a couple years later when we had some really good business ideas where we could create a product for dealers that a lot of dealers could use.
How Vin Solutions came along is my partner and Matt and I's partner, Mike DeLay. Mike and I started a company called AES, Automotive eSolutions, and what we did is we helped car dealers run their internet departments better. We used the model that had worked at my dealership and used it for other dealers. Well, once we did that, we had it run, it was good. We needed a tool to prove it to the dealers, something they could see it. So we looked around, there was nothing out there. At that point, we went to Matt, because we knew Matt at Vin Stickers, and said, hey, Matt, here's what we want. We want a program that does this and this and this. And Matt said, no problem, no problem, no problem. He said he could do any of them. So the company actually came from Matt's company, Vin Stickers, our company, Automotive E-Solutions. Put the two together, you got Vin Solutions. So that's how the company name came about. What we were doing was we were able to give all this relevant information to the customers. I mean, all the things they really wanted, not just, okay, if you came in to buy F-150 and we send you information on a hybrid, you don't really care, that's not relevant to you, you don't care. Well, we don't know that as dealers unless you tell us. So this tool helped gather that information to make sure we're giving the right information to the customers, we're contacting them, calling them back, sending them emails, whatever, however they want to be contacted.
It was kind of fascinating to go from, went from being at Belton High School to DeVry to being this 22-year-old kid, right, to starting this great company that really took off, became very successful. Was kind of just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. Vin Solutions started out as a simple company in my basement. My dad was my first employee, my best friend was my second employee, and just rapidly grew into this huge business.
It grew quickly, and that's a tough thing, a really tough thing to do. There's two ways to go out of business: not enough and too much. And when you get that fast growth like that, it's very expensive to be able to maintain all that growth. But we lucked out. We fought our way through it.
We doubled the size every year. In 2010, we were on the Inc. 500. We were the 33rd fastest growing software company in the country. So it was just rapid growth. I had a couple other business partners. What was really fascinating about us is we never took any outside capital. The company was bootstrapped from the very beginning.
When you think about it, we're a startup company that does software in the automotive sector. In 2007, when automotive and software were not good words. So I mean, any banker office that we walked into, they were jumping out the window to get away from us. So this thing was totally funded on our personal money, our credit cards, everything we could do to keep it afloat at the beginning. And it started with 3 of us, 1 employee in the office, wondering how we're going to cover our $600 rent, to where we had 350 employees when we sold.
And then in 2011, we were lucky enough to sell the company to Autotrader.com for about $150 million.
Well, our goal was, there's a couple exit strategies with it. I knew I wanted to continue on with my family business, so it wasn't anything that we really thought about handing over to our kids. So selling was one option, taking it public was another option. It happened way faster than we thought it would. We had not planned at all. When we talked to Autotrader, it was because another company had made an offer to buy us, and we said we didn't want to sell. And the number kept getting higher, and we said, okay, but we didn't like the company that was making an offer, and that's when I had a relationship with Autotrader. I contacted their CEO and told him, hey, we're decided we are kind of in play here, and it's all started from there.
So one of the common questions I get is, how does it feel like to sell your baby? And in a lot of ways, after doing it for 7 years, it's not really your baby anymore. What I always say is it kind of feels like your baby went off to college, got married. It's not really your baby anymore. And in a lot of ways, I was ready to do something new, ready for a new challenge. So it's just part of the evolution. The second time around of having your own business, it's great to draw upon your past experiences. I started off as just a simple software developer, and now I've gained so much experience around sales and marketing, legal and accounting, and all these different things. So it's great to be able to apply those to the second time around here, and if anything, it just gives you a lot more confidence. In January 2012, I started Stackify. Our goal is to help companies support their applications. So we want to tell them when their applications aren't working correctly and give them all the tools they need to evaluate why they're not working and solve those problems. One of the best things about technology startups is you don't need a lot of capital. You really need a lot of time, and you just need really smart software developers that can create the product. But you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, to open a storefront or buy inventory, do other things like you do other businesses. And even the best part about software companies is they're extremely profitable once they get up and running. You can sell a product and it doesn't necessarily have a big cost of goods sold. It's just extremely profitable, which make them very valuable long term.
Yeah, I stayed automotive based. Mike, Matt, and I kind of went our own ways, but we still stayed friends and had involvement. So I left and from Vin Solutions, came back and stayed in the automotive, bought my family's business out. Mike stayed with Vin Solutions for 2 years to make sure everything went, and Matt started with Stackify. So now we're just coming back together with the new endeavor.
This is reality TV that works. Startups, made in Kansas City.
come on in here and catch up with these guys. They just came back from a mentor meeting with one of our corporate sponsors over at Black & Veatch Engineering.
What we're all about here at CAPS is aligning economic needs and economic development with educational structure. So high school students get an opportunity to fast forward into their future of high demand, high skilled jobs, while employers, large businesses, small startups, are able to help mentor us, educators, into a pathway that aligns with business needs. Thus, the partnership of education and business is so solid and a win-win for everybody.
We take 2 to 3 days of connecting with kids and discovering their strengths, what they're built to do, and then we align those up with, hopefully, the future end user. And we're finding that these kids actually have more than we ever expected they had, this untapped potential.
I'm designing a product for the education system using technology. Sometimes there's kind of a disconnect in the classroom when you learn something in the classroom and then you go home and you forget how to do it, so I'm trying to solve that.
I'm working on a little background research for our problem where our sort of problem area is finding or assessing kind of the needs of foster care children in the foster care system and like the pain points and the weaknesses of that whole process.
And you'll notice a lot of the graphics on the wall. That is really who we are at CAPS. It's lots of fun. Sometimes every rule and policy and regulation can kind of bind you up to not be free to think. Sometimes we slip into that in our traditional methods of education. And so we really want to orbit around that, taking the great things that we're doing in our schools and then applying those in a space like this. In the Connect space, this is where you have that informal gathering, the large meetups, so that people can really interact rather than a one-to-many. It's almost many-to-many so that you can interact. So it's not your traditional classroom, if you see.
One of the first things that we did as a program was go to the business environments and say, tell us what we should be teaching our students.
I think the connections help a lot. Working with business partners from actual companies and talking to them and getting their experiences will help you to build your business later on.
The accelerator has basically taught us a lot about building companies and building businesses, from the aspects of like the connections with the partners, the business partners in the real world that we get to meet up with. I've definitely learned a lot about the businesses and how to start businesses, the whole design process in general. And the main thing I hope to pull out of it is definitely the connections that'll help me maybe start up a business in the future.
In this room right here, you've heard a lot about the students connecting with the outside world and business environment. We love that when they get out, make those connections in our influence. But this is also a safe place for the mentors and business partners that come here and meet with students. And so that's basically what you have here is a subject matter expert that's coaching them up through their process.
Because those mentoring and networking connections, that's how people are getting jobs. We can't have kids graduating from college, waving a degree saying, come hire me. Those days don't exist anymore. We have to work really hard to connect those young people early on, maintain those networks, grow those networks, so that by the time they're coming into their junior, senior year, people are waiting for them.
The learning atmosphere at CAPS is way different than at a normal high school. Like at a typical high school, it's kind of like you can tell the differences in the groups of types of people and things, and at CAPS, just everybody's kind of under one blanket. It's not, oh, those are the popular kids or those are the engineering kids, just kind of everybody respects everybody else, and we're all here for the same reason.
The CAPS program is a lot different than a typical home high school. It's very hands-on, interactive, and I think you learn more and benefit more from the CAPS program than you would at your regular high school.
I mean, you just get to do things, you get to have your own experience instead of just
more freedom.
Instead of just like studying in class, you get to actually do things that you would have to use in the future if you want to go into the medical field.
And we're seeing students leave with a heightened sense of confidence to face a college-level environment with the knowledge of what's on the other side of college so that they can pursue very focused, because they've discerned what they like, what they're good at, what they have contacts in, and they're able to do that all here without paying a cent of college tuition. They leave here with that sense of confidence. They leave here with a strong focus of what their future could be. They leave here with mentors and connections to the industry that they're interested in. They leave here with a set of professional skills that would surprise you for 17 years old. I think some of our business partners would like to have employees that have some of those professional skills. So they leave here with a toolkit and a level of self-confidence that's very unusual for a high school student.
Having the opportunity to work with the real world and real businesses, unlike a lot of kids in the college experience would even have, even with some internships, we're getting more experience here than they really get.
CAPS helps us with the real world experience by giving us sort of a professional etiquette or like an understanding of how the professional world works, and also getting used to public speaking and just on the spot talking in front of audiences.
There's a dress code basically in order to bring a more professional feel to the environment and make it more of a professionalized workplace, and it actually does help with the attitudes of the kids and keeps them more on task.
Well, at CAPS, we try to follow and really align ourselves with the future of industry or the economic trend. And what we're seeing nationwide is an uptick in entrepreneurialism. 2 out of the 3 jobs are created through small business and small business startups. So what we began seeing are students that were creating products that were provisionally patentable. And we were amazed because they had pushed that far. And then we saw entrepreneurial students that said, hey, look, I'm thinking about I need to start an LLC. I ought to be running my own place, and I'm a 17-year-old. So this trajectory just got faster and faster. And we know that not all students are going to start their own business and be that entrepreneur, but we heard from industry that even if they aren't in a startup, that's the kind of behavior they want. That's the kind of innovation that they need in their companies. So regardless if they're launching their own startup or they're immersed in a highly evolved corporate environment or a research firm around Kansas City, they want entrepreneurial spirit. And so that's what we saw naturally happening with these young people.
This one here actually, the Mahi straw, that is a filter system that actually has been fully patented, that is out there. They started an LLC also called Clearwater. And so those 2 students, one at Illinois and one at Cal Poly, are still partnered up and running that company. And so those are wonderful success stories of kids going to that level and sticking with it. It's not the same for everybody. It's multiple paths that you need to put these kids on, but inspiring that and that creativity and that imagination and letting them then run with that is really what we're about.
A co-production of KCPT and Outpost Worldwide at home in Kansas City. Production, post, content.